Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur TV Live. I am your co-host, Velma Gallant. Super excited to be here again today. We have a very special guest and some super interesting information to be chatting about today. Our topic today is the four kinds of stages entrepreneurs need to leverage and how to maximize each one. Our special guest today is Kimberly Crowe. She is an award-winning international inspirational public speaker, keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, and an authority on speak to sell. She is also the best-selling author and a serial entrepreneur. She is the broadcast personality of a weekly online show, Speakers Playhouse, and the founder of Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel. Kimberly is known for her expertise in on audience engagement. Her mission is to make speaking on stages super accessible and super fun for entrepreneurs and coaches to share their messages to the world. Welcome to the call, Kimberly.
Wow, that was a great introduction. Well, I'm super delighted to be here with your group, Velma. This has been absolutely amazing. Love Heartrepreneur TV. This is really awesome doing business heart to heart. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have got a lot of juicy stuff to play with today. You said that there are four kinds of stages that entrepreneurs need to leverage. Can we chat a little bit about that?
I'd
Let's
love to.
dive right in.
Awesome. Okay, great. So I am delighted to be here today. I am very, very passionate about helping entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, healers, speakers get on stages to share their message with the world. Every one of us have a little bit of magic that is really unique and special to us. And that is the thing we were brought here to this planet, in my belief. It's the thing we were brought here to share. And if you're not being seen, you're being overlooked. If you're not being heard, your message isn't getting out there. And if you're not regularly getting that out on some kind of stage or stages, then you're not going to have the contribution to the world that you want to have before you leave the planet. I think Wayne Dyer has been very famous for saying that the graveyard is one of the richest places in the world.
Mm.
And he used to say, just be sure you don't die with the music still inside you. Right.
I yeah,
Right.
I know we hear a lot of people talk about it, and I think it's super important. I love that you say that we each have a unique magic in that, and I believe as well with you that we're brought here to share it. I know that my past experiences, all of the learning and growth that have occurred for me over the last 56 years, did not happen for no reason at all. Right? And I believe that with all of my heart for everybody who's here inside of Heartrepreneurs that we all have that same heart, that our experiences, our wisdom, our training, our growth, all of that is for us to share for the good of our world. Oh, looks like Kimberly froze. Uh-oh. And one of the things that she did share before she froze was we want to be, if we're not being seen, we're being overlooked. Oh, here, you're back. Good.
Oh, I was worried about that. It spun on my side and it may be my internet connection. I apologize.
No worries. We were chatting about the unique magic that we're each brought here to share. And I really love how you shared if you're not being seen, you're being overlooked. I think that's really critical.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the stages that you can get on to be able to get out there. And I know a lot of people are like, I want to get on podcasts, or I want to get on web summits, or I want to get on live in-person stages. And that's true. Those are all media that you can get on and ways. Television is another one. Clubhouse stages are another one. Audio podcasts, video podcasts, YouTube channels. There's all kinds of different channels that you can get your message out on. But we're going to talk about the types, the kinds of stages that you can leverage as you are an entrepreneur or a entrepreneur, if you will. The
Hmm.
first type of stage that every one of your audience members should get on, in my opinion, is a speak to sell stage. Now, this one's very, very common, and lots of people shy away from it because they feel like that's the gross sales pitch that people give, where they get on stage and they start, giving a presentation, and then they say like all these teasers, and then they throw up these PowerPoint slides that say, I have this program and it's got this thing in it and that thing, and it's worth $1 million, and they add it all up and it's worth so much money. But if you buy it right now, you can get it for $9.97, right?
Yep.
And that's it. The reason that that's out there is because unfortunately that does work, right? That is a methodology that's out there and it's working and people are buying from it, and it could work for you as well. But I am here with great news that the Speak to Sell stage does not have to be a call to action that's sort of that slimy sales pitch. As a matter of fact, we have the ability to open the possibility for people to connect with us in a much deeper, more powerful way. Now, your call to action at the end of you should have a call to action at the end of every single talk that you give, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be buy my stuff. A Speak to Sell stage is just a stage where you are taking them on the natural next step of their buying journey with you. And the natural next step might be to buy your stuff, but it also might be to connect with you one-on-one on a coffee chat, or it might be to grab your downloadable free gift, or it might be to meet you in the back of the room because you'll be here for the rest of the day and you guys can have a chat at the break if you're in an in-person stage. Or it might be buy my book, or it might be check out my website, send me an email, send a text to this number and I'll send you something special, right? It could be a variety of different things. And the idea is that you want to take them eventually on a buying journey that they can make an informed decision on making a decision to work with you. But you don't have to
Oh, darn. She's paused there. So I don't know if you've been getting a moment to actually listen to what she's been saying here. Speaking to sell, you do have to have a call to action. And what I really loved about what you shared was the selling doesn't have to necessarily be a product. It can be whatever that next natural next step is. I think that's really important to say because I think that can take one, especially for somebody who's starting out, that can take some of the pressure off. I think it also points to um, the natural transition of you don't know me to here, let's get to know each other a bit better. If you like what I've shared here, let's get to know each other a bit better. So was I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. It's just having them get that connection with you. Now, I don't know if if you're a big reader, there's a new book that actually came out called Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. Daniel did some research on how we do our buying, how we act as buyers, as purchasers. And the new research shows that it takes 7-11-4. That is 7 hours of research on average before we make a purchase decision. So it could be research listening to you on Entrepreneur TV. It could
Mm-hmm.
be connecting with you on your YouTube channel. It could be looking at your website. It could be reading your downloadable or reading your book. It could be a variety of different things. But now that we are such investigators that whenever you make a buying decision, I don't care whether it's a car or a toaster, you're probably going to go to Google and find some stuff out about it first, right? So that's what they've found is that now people usually take an average, statistically speaking, of 7 hours of researching something or getting to know something before they make a buying decision. So being able to speak on a Speak to Sell stage may just be the first little bit that they're getting to know you and they want to know more. So give them that opportunity to have more of you before they make that decision to hand over their credit card, if you will. The second number is 11. That is 11 different touches. It used to be said in an old axiom for business that it takes 8 to 12 touches of reaching out to a contact before they trust that you're going to be there and will make a buying decision. And yes, that number is still spot on, right at 11 touches. So 11
Mm-hmm.
different connections. And then the last number is 4. And that is 4 different locations, because oftentimes people don't just buy things from somebody on a stage. They're going to want to look at your website. They're going to want to find you on a podcast. They're going to want to talk to a friend about that may have used it before, or go to a testimonial or something. So they're going to want to find you 4 different ways before they'll make that buying decision. So the good news is, by getting on stages, speak to sell stages, you can make many of those connections. You can offer them the conversation and the learning points, just like we're doing here now. We're talking about 4 stages, and we're offering some learning points. Some of your audience may never have seen me before. They may not know anything about me. And it's a great first touch and a great part of that first 7 hours of connection. And
Mhm.
ideally, this will be the first of 4 different locations that they can get a hold of information about me. Same thing with any of your attendees and your audience. If they are out there getting on stages, definitely connect with the Speak to Sell stage, because that's a great opportunity to be able to start getting that know, like, and trust built. So
Absolutely.
stage number one is a speak to sell stage, and none of your speakers, none of your coaches, authors, healers should be afraid of the speak to sell stage. In fact, we should maximize it. We just don't have to make it a slimy sales pitch.
I really like that, and you shared a lot of really good information. Um, it kind of has me wonder if we should be treating every stage that we're on as a speak to sell stage.
That's a great question. That's a really great question. And you can. There are 3 other types of stages that we'll talk about, and all of them have the potential to be a speak to sell stage as well. The next stage that we can talk about is actually the one that seems to be the brass ring, the one that every speaker really wants to get, and that is a paid speaking gig. That is, that they get paid for getting on the stage and sharing their knowledge and credibility with your audience, right?
Mhm.
A speak to sell stage is, I'm going to get paid a certain dollar amount for delivering this talk. And those are really, really fun. I've been a paid speaker on many different occasions. One of my most interesting ones, I've been paid to speak at corporations where I've taught, and I've gone around to different corporations and taught about, wow, this will date me, Velma. You might know this one. Total quality management. That was a quality initiative that was before Kaizen and all the other ones. Total quality management was a program that you could institute at your corporation. At the end of that talk, I did have a call to action, but it wasn't anything about buy my stuff. The call to action for that was, I want you to do things differently. I need this company to behave in a different manner afterwards, so that they have implemented total quality, right? But they're also, during that talk, as you so smartly point out, I was also representing myself as a speaker on this topic. And so it was sort of speak to sell as well, where another person might come in and say, my husband's company really needs this talk as well. Can you come speak at this other organization? So every talk that you give could potentially be a speak to sell stage. I also know colleagues, I didn't do this personally, but I know colleagues who do those paid speaking gigs. And during this paid speaking gig, they'll say, well, my clients that I work with get this result, and my clients that I work with get that result. And they're teaching and they're getting paid to teach. But then the astute people in the audience will say, are you a coach? Can you help our company get the same results you helped your other clients get? And so you can turn that one cleverly into a speak to sell stage as well.
Okay, awesome. So I heard again that we absolutely need to have a call to action in these paid speaking, which could be one, here's what I'm teaching you, here's what I want you to do to implement it, right? So that's one of the things I heard. One of the ones that you gave in as example is corporations, and a lot of people understand that because that can be at, you know, management retreats or growth opportunities that they provide their employees, that kind of thing. And I really like that the emphasis that um, the back doorway of these being called to speak to sell is that we can gain more referrals from these kinds of opportunities as well. So we're kind of selling ourselves in that way, not necessarily our programs, but we're still selling ourselves.
Absolutely, we are. Absolutely. And one of the other gigs that I got as a paid speaking opportunity was to speak as an equestrian polo announcer. Both my kids were in equestrian polo, and I announced for their tournaments multiple times and got the audience really engaged and spoke to the audience more than the players. One of the things that made me very unique is I was a parent and I didn't really understand the game. So I would explain the game along with announcing the action during the talk, during the sessions. So the speakers afterwards, or the audience members afterwards, were like, "That was great. I learned so much from you. Can you come announce at our polo tournaments as well?" So same thing, you're advertising yourself while you're actually doing that paid speaking gig.
Right, right. So would you include something like an emceeing for people under
Absolutely.
those paid speaking? Okay. What
Absolutely.
I
If you're a teacher and you charge to give a presentation, if even if you're a fourth grade teacher, technically you had a paid speaking gig. If you're an actor or an actress that gets paid to be on stage, you're a paid speaker. If I have done audiobooks and I've read audiobooks, and technically I'm a paid speaker. So there's a lot of different creative ways to use paid speaking. Now, the way to maximize and leverage that one is a little bit unique. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So when you are doing a paid speaking gig, one of the most important things you have to do is make sure that you get paid before you speak. Because when you're speaking, you're delivering the goods. There's no way to repossess your talk after you've given it, right? So you
Hmm.
have to make sure that you get paid first. If you don't get paid first, then you have just invented a brand new entrepreneurship for yourself called collections. And you have to go chase people for money afterwards. And it's not a lot of fun. So, number one way to
Hmm.
leverage that one is to get paid before you speak. And any reputable event planner will have your check to you or before you get to stage or at the stage when you arrive. And that is very common practice. So make sure that that's in all of your contracts before you actually step in front of the mic.
Hmm. In contract. Okay. I think that's a really important distinction as well. I love that you're reminding us to get paid before we speak, but I also heard in the contract. So, what I'm hearing here is the importance to have some kind of contract, especially when it comes to these paid speakings. Is there something like that when it comes to the other four stages that we've already and will be talking about?
Great question. So when you're on a speak to sell stage, oftentimes you are just following the rules of that stage. If you're getting on somebody else's stage, it's their house. I don't know, Velma, if you went to sleepover parties when you were young. I sure did, and your audience might have. When you go to a sleepover party, my parents always told me you have to live by their rules. If they say it's
Mm.
dinner time at this time or sleeping time at this time, you have to live by their rules. Well, when you're on somebody else's stage, you're in their house. You need to play by their rules. So oftentimes they will give you a contract on what needs to be delivered. So if it's a speak to sell stage or a paid speaking gig, there should be some sort of agreement in place. And that it doesn't necessarily need to be in writing, but you do need to know what the terms of getting on the stage are. If you get on somebody else's stage and break the rules, the biggest rule that you can break that you will not get invited back again is by going over time on somebody else's stage. If they have a
Mm.
time limit, you got to stick to it.
Okay, I think that's really important, and again, it points to um, know your host,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? So, okay, perfect. So we've covered speak to sell stage, paid speaking. What is another one?
Stage number three is an authority stage. An authority stage could be the most popular one that your audience probably knows is TEDx. If you have a TEDx talk, you are an authority on that particular talk. That talk may have the potential of getting tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of views, even potentially millions of views that are out there. I was fortunate to have a TED talk that it was a TEDx talk that was given in Las Vegas. It was the world's largest ever live streamed TEDx in the history of TEDx. It was a hybrid where we did an in person event and it was live streamed at the same time. It was during COVID. It was one of the unique times in the world where we had to get creative. And so it was very popular at the time. But TED followed it and they actually picked up my talk, which was on confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when you keep believing the thing you already believe and you keep finding evidence to agree with what you already believe rather than
Mhm.
looking at all of the evidence that's out there. And that topic was during fake news. If you remember that hit the news a lot, fake news, right?
Uh-huh.
And people were in difficulty with confirmation bias. No matter which side of the aisle you were on, that was a troublesome point. And so TED reached into our TEDx event and pulled out a couple of the talks, and mine was one of them. And so it's officially a TED talk as well. So we got an opportunity to be on the TED stage, which was really incredible. So
That's
that,
very exciting.
yes,
Yeah,
it was very, and it makes you an
and
authority.
I really love how that's an example of um, turning what's not quite right into something amazing, because at that time, it would have been like, well, dang, I don't get to go talk on the stage. But it transformed into something pretty amazing, and probably something that at that time you could not have even imagined.
Exactly. Yes, you're right, Velma. Absolutely.
Okay. Are there
So
other kinds of authority stages, or is
yes,
TED pretty
actually
much,
there are. And anytime you get on somebody else's stage where the definition of an authority stage is that somebody has vetted the person speaking. So if you had to cross through a gate or a checkpoint in order to get on that stage, and by being on that stage, it gives you authority in that space. So if you were ever on the Oprah show or interviewed on CNN, or if you were on Dr. Phil, if you're in that space, that would be an authority stage. Somebody would have checked to make sure you are who you say you are before allowing you on that stage. TEDx stages are very much that way. You have to prove that you have authority. You have to cite sources, etc. I was on an authority stage in San Diego when I was working at corporate many years ago. I was on the Women Who Mean Business stage. I had to get nominated to be on that stage, and then I had 19 letters of recommendation to be on that stage. The interesting thing about how to leverage an authority stage, it does give you authority just by being on it. But oftentimes you're not able to get paid to be on that stage, and you're not able to do speak to sell. You'll notice that I spoke on confirmation bias, which has nothing to do with speaking or entrepreneurship or coaching or anything that I. It's just an authority stage. So, how does that actually help me in any way as an entrepreneur? How can I leverage that? And the answer is you got to get it out everywhere. Nobody knows you as an authority unless you get the word out that you are on this authority stage. So you've got to put it on your website. You've got to put it in your press release. You've got to send it out to your clients. Maybe put it in a tagline on your email for a while. Post it on LinkedIn. Make sure that it is out there everywhere for people to find. My TEDx talk started out with 100 views, then it went to 1,000 views, then it went to 10,000 views, and I think it's at 70,000 views right now. We're going for 100, so you guys are welcome to check it out, Kimberly Crowe TEDx, and you can find that and watch it and help me get to 100,000. That'd be awesome. But that stage is not an authority. It is an authority stage, but it can't help you unless a lot of people know about it. So you want people to know it, see it, view it, like it, share it, comment on it. And when that happens, then it can go viral. And that is how you leverage an authority stage.
okay. Now there's again some really juicy stuff in there. Okay, so what I'm hearing with this is again, it's one of those things. We don't necessarily have the call to action at the end. We don't, well, we might with a behavior, right? Depending on the context, we might have a call to action with respect to behavior or something like that. But there's a little bit of personal responsibility when it comes to something like that, in finding the ways to repurpose it, get it out there, get the additional exposure. It's not just the closed room that you're in, but it's something that you get to use to your advantage to be able to. It's almost like a video book, right? Like, a lot of people
Yeah.
get books to prove their authority. These are those same kind of things that we get to use to, when we're trying to get more paid speaking opportunities, or we're trying to get on more stages. Something like that can again point to the other stages. That's what I heard through what you shared.
Velma, you're absolutely right. Every single talk that you give should have a call to action. I've been on over 5,000 stages, and it took me quite a few stages before I figured this part out. And actually, it was pointed out to me by one of my mentors. Basically, I would get on a stage, I'd make people laugh, I'd make people, inspired, and then I'd be like, that was awesome, mic drop, and then I'd leave, right? But nobody knew what to do next. Nobody knew how to connect with me or what they were supposed to do next. So it wasn't until I started really making sure that every talk I give has some sort of this is what you can do next in order for the audience to feel like that they have gotten a complete talk. So before you get on any stage, something really important to know is how do you want your audience to feel at the end of this talk, and what do you want your audience to do? Now, at the end of the talk, it might be, I want them to buy my stuff, or it might be, I want them to check out my website, or I just want them to have a different behavior in the future. Maybe I just want them to be aware of something or call their senator. It could be really anything, but you've got to know so your audience will know.
Okay, so create some kind of feeling, have some kind of call to action, and it's up to us. There's a variety of call to actions that we can have.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. So we have hit 3 of them now: speak to sell stage, paid speaking, and authority stage. What is number 4?
Number 4 might surprise you. Stage number 4 is a rehearsal stage. Oftentimes people will say, oh, really? I'm a paid speaker and I've got a keynote and I've done so much. Do I really need a rehearsal stage? And the answer is absolutely. But the good news is you can pretty much make any stage that you are on a rehearsal stage. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you use your TEDx as a rehearsal stage. Hopefully you've rehearsed a lot before you do your TEDx live, but we do want to be sure that you use every stage as an opportunity as a rehearsal stage. The first time that I ever gave this talk was on a podcast. That was a rehearsal for me because the next time I could improve it. Every talk that I give has the opportunity to improve for the next time by getting feedback from the audience. For this particular talk, one of the things that you might notice is that I have a reflection in my glasses, and I might be able to improve the lighting next time. Or I have, at the beginning, I was on an internet that wasn't functioning properly, so I switched to another internet during my talk. It's always important to have a backup, right? So things that you can always learn and improve as you go along the way. One time I gave this talk and I taught about the 4 types of stages, and then I moved forward and talked about how to leverage each one. And it almost felt like for some people in the audience that was like, is that 8 stages, or I don't really understand, or which one went with what? And it was confusing. So now I teach 1 stage and how to leverage it, and 2 stage and how to leverage it. And so every time you give a talk, it can stand to be improved. I've given over 5,000 talks. My best talk is my next one.
I love that. I really love that. I like that you're saying that pretty much every stage is a practice or a rehearsal stage. I like the word rehearsal stage better than practice. That feels really good to me. What can you learn with each of these talks? What can you learn? What can you glean from what's been going on? Some of the rehearsal stages that I thought of, there's podcasts, of course, that you brought up, but especially for people who are starting out, I know that I haven't done it in quite a while, but I did go to Toastmasters.
Lots of people bring up Toastmasters, and I agree. Toastmasters is a fantastic beginning ground. Toastmasters is very, very structured. Anybody can join at least one Toastmasters in their area. Some of them are clubs that you have to belong to a company to join, but many of them are open to the general public. So there should be a Toastmasters in just about every greater metropolitan area for you to be able to join and get feedback on a talk. The difficulty with Toastmasters for me, as you become a professional public speaker, is that their talks are so rigid that you can usually only give a 6 to 7 minute talk, with some changes, with some opportunities. In the advanced club, sometimes they let you give a 20-minute talk. But say you're teaching a course that's 6 weeks long, and each session is 90 minutes. How can you get Toastmasters to help you with that, right? So eventually you have to step out of that Toastmasters box. Toastmasters is really, really good, in my opinion, for engineers who are terrified of speaking and giving a presentation in front of their boss. It's a great, warm, comforting ground for people to start speaking on. But as you grow, you need to expand your abilities. the way to leverage a rehearsal stage is to make sure you're getting feedback. So feedback from a podcast might just be your interviewer giving you feedback along the way, what they liked about your talk, what little pieces they pulled out, what questions did they ask because you weren't being very clear on something. When they restate things, are they restating what you intended for them to restate? Are they giving you new ideas of something that you should state more clearly in the future? How can you improve your talk just by listening to your interviewer? Or go to the comments section. When this goes live, I may go back and check and put a note out for 6 weeks later to go back and check on it and see if there's comments underneath this talk that I can respond to. Or somebody says something like, wow, I really liked the way Kimberly did this, or her earrings were super distracting, or whatever it was. Right? Then I can know that that's something that I can improve on next time. The difficulty with that and the way to leverage it is that you've got to make sure that you're open to feedback, because feedback in our brains is criticism, and in our brains criticism is painful or bad. And really you just need to be sure that you absorb it as if it was somebody else's opinion, because that's all criticism is. It's one person's critique of what you did, and their opinion may not apply to you. You may not need to incorporate all of their ideas. I actually have a television show that I do every single week, a broadcast show on Zoom. And that show is very, very fast paced, right? I speak very, very quickly. It's sort of like an auctioneer style. It's full of goofballery and lots of fast action. I got feedback afterwards one time from a gentleman who's super sweet. He said, Miss Kimberly, I don't think I can come back to your show. It was just moving too quickly. You need to slow way down for us to understand. And while that was valid feedback for this gentleman, it wasn't anything that I was going to directly incorporate, because part of the excitement for the rest of the people out there was that it's super fast paced. However, I did sort of incorporate that, because instead of slowing down, I repeated things that were super important. And I would repeat something like a rehearsal stage. That's right, a rehearsal stage. And I would repeat it so people who were coming at it like this is coming really fast had a chance to get in the important information a second time.
Hey, I really like a lot of that. And I think, again, if we preface it with this is a rehearsal, when I'm going into rehearsal, I am choosing before I even walk in there that I want the feedback that comes out of this. So that becomes an empower. I think that's probably why I liked the word rehearsal so much, because it's an empowering way for me to get the practice. The other thing that I got out of what you shared there was, how many stages have we been on that we did not classify as a stage? Because you had mentioned that Toastmasters is a great opportunity for engineers to practice to be able to speak in front of their boss. How many bosses have we spoken in front of? How many family members have we spoken in front of? How many coaches have we spoken in front of? All of those kinds of things, we actually can take that as a rehearsal stage and look back on it with that heart of what's the feedback that I can glean from this.
Absolutely. You're totally right, Velma.
Awesome. We have gone over by 2 minutes. Speaking of which, I loved this conversation. There was so much juicy information in here. I think this is one that is definitely a repeat listener to. You're going to pull different information out of it each time that we listen to it. So I think this was fantastic. Thank you so much for your wisdom, Kimberly. I loved it.
My pleasure. It's been a joy.
So those of you who are in the Facebook group, leave your comments below. What it is that you got out of this that really resonated with you? What are your takeaways from this? What actions are you going to take on this? And for those of you out in YouTube land, leave your comments there as well. However, the best way is for you to come on over to Heartrepreneurs with Terry Levine in Facebook and join up with more of us heart-based business owners like Kimberly, like myself, like Terry, and there's a whole community of people that you're going to be able to connect with. Thanks again, Kimberly. This was fantastic.
My pleasure. And final words, if somebody hands you a mic, just say yes.
Ooh, I like that. I'm taking it. Have a brilliant day, everyone.